Alrighty, it's that time again. Unleashing the power, testing Doom Eternal Slayer helmet and cosplay. Yes, that's what we ended up doing. Welcome back to the channel, The Varied Life. I'm Steve, the retired hobby tech guy, and today we're doing some cool stuff. Not only are we going to take a look at the helmet that we ended up printing out, my very first, well, no, it's not my very first helmet. This was my very first helmet. So, yeah, it looks cool. I've kind of superimposed that over my head. But it's really small. So, it is what it is. And I'll paint this one of these days. Maybe I'll do a series of small helmets and I'll just paint them. But Games Workshop might sue me. They're suing everybody for infringing on their intellectual property. Unfortunately, they're killing their fan base and everything. But that aside, that's why I decided to go with the Doom Eternal Slayer armor. And what I ended up doing is purchasing the Doom Eternal Slayer armor Hoosie stuff. And matter of fact, let me bring that up. It was Galactic... GAL, Galactic Armory. No, it's not the, would you seriously, really? My computer's just been having all kinds of crazy stuff. And first it was problems with the audio and the video not syncing up and, you know, all kinds of other stuff. Anyway, what I want to end up doing is just kind of showing you what we ended up doing here. And basically, I purchased the Eternal Slayer Doom Armor Slayer cosplay stuff. And what we ended up seeing is not that there, but the, seriously, really? I'm just so out of it today. So there's the armor. There's the armor. Got it from Galactic Armory. Comes with the helmet and the armor. $30. I was like, hey, it looks cool. That's what I'm going to end up doing. So the interesting thing is since we already got the spoiler of what it looks like, the question that I had was, what does this look like? And did it fit? And of course, I did a video on that. So let's take a look at this. Here is the helmet, as you can see, and we've been playing around with some visor options, and with this isn't the final product, okay? This isn't the final product because you can see it's a little wonky and stuff. Not bad on that side there, just a little tiny wonky, you know, we got a little divot in the glass and stuff, but it's not glass. What we ended up doing is just using some security window tint like this, and we got some paper, we put it on the inside of the helmet, and basically what we ended up doing is just kind of putting paper in there, kind of like so. We traced out the opening there and basically ended up like that, and then of course we cut it down and cut it down until we got to the point of where, you know what we're going to end up doing is we'll just trace out the basically the outside. So kind of went like this, and then what we ended up doing is adding like maybe a ½ inch to this, and then we traced that onto our security film that you put on windows, which it's UV protected, and I did that for my 3D resin printer because it's in a very visible, how can you say it? Very visible enclosure, and I wanted to keep the UV sun rays out, so I picked up this stuff, and I had a bunch of this left over. So I was like, how am I going to do this visor, and am I going to have to do resin printing and the whole 9 yards? Very, very interesting dilemma, because I'm like, ooh, because I had to size this to my head. Use the calipers and everything. Matter of fact, if you go online to printables, you can find these calipers, and then what you can end up doing is measuring your head. I measured out to my ears just so it was a little bit wide, and then measured the distance from here to here because the measurements here were a little wonky, and then I did the measurements up and down, and then front to back with the nose, and did that and recorded all of those. So hold on a second. Let me see if we can get rid of some of that. We had some weird video stuff going on. Like I said, we had weird audio video problems, and I don't know what is going on. So anyway, I scaled the helmet to my head as best I could, and then we printed it out. You could probably check out that video, because I wasn't sure if it was going to work. And even though I did the dimensions, when you do it multiple times, you start going crazy. And then when you think you've got it and it's printing out, and then you're like, did I do the uniform adjustment, or what did I do? So yeah, very, very, very interesting stuff is going on. So it's kind of like, what's going to happen with this? I'm not sure. We printed it out. It does fit. But then the next question was, how am I going to make the visor for this? That's a big question, because I don't have a vacuum former thing. I'm not going to make a vacuum forming rig for my hobby room just to do one face shield. That's not going to be a thing. So I'm not going to waste a bunch of money on that. I'd rather put money into the armor and so on and so forth. So I was thinking through it, and I came up with this idea of the paper and then the UV window tint stuff, because I had some of that, traced it out, and then what I ended up doing is taking that piece of paper and I took some blue tack. So if you don't know what blue tack is, it's kind of like an adhesive that you can put posters on the wall and stuff like that. So what I ended up doing with not the piece of paper, but with the film, the UV protective security film, and then on the outskirts of it, I put this on, and then I put it on the inside of the helmet so I could hold that material, that film, on the inside of the helmet. And I'm like, hey, I bet you I can take my glue gun and I can glue that into the helmet, and that might be the way to go. So gave it a shot. This is an initial test run, so we'll see what happens with it. And boom, there it is. Now we do have one little, as you can see right there, but that's where the glue gun ended up accidentally hitting the material there, so we kind of got a permanent divot. And you see we got some imperfections there, but for a first run, that isn't bad. And as flimsy as that film is, yeah, and you can see through it. So, look at that. You can actually see through this thing. But when you look at it from a distance, you end up, you can't see in. So how cool is that? So what I ended up doing on the inside of this is that I had that blue tack on the perimeter, and then I would peel away one side of this. It's so hard to do this. Peel away one side of this, so this is on the inside of the helmet. It's like this, and so it's all kind of held by blue tack. Well, I took off half of it, and then what I ended up doing is gluing on the perimeter, hot gluing on the perimeter of the helmet, and then laying this down, and then putting more hot glue and laying it down, then more hot glue and laying it down, and then I took off the other side until eventually it was all hot glued in. So I was like, hey, we're going to see how that goes. And, you got a few messy spots there that you can see on the front. But, this was just kind of a test run to see if this could actually work. And I think this turned out pretty good for the most part. Obviously, I'll have to do some more attention to detail. I can actually go through and I can trim this down a little bit more so that the film lays down, and we could probably end up doing some more blue tack on there. Actually, some of this I needed to glue a little bit more, but not bad at all. That's doable. That is definitely doable. I'd want to redo it again to get a little bit cleaner lines and everything, to get a little bit of a cleaner finish. But for the most part, if this is going to be battle-worn, grim, dark future of whatever, of Doom World, whatever, Eternal, having this helmet all painted up and scuffed up and battle worn, and then even with the visor in the way that it is, you know, we might put some scuff marks on there, we might put some paint and stuff like that to make it look like it's really worn and to cover up any imperfections like I had on this. So now the question is, will this fit? Well, we know the helmet fits, but what does it look like when we put this on? So, and as you can see, got to get my ears in there, but that's what it looks like. Luke, I am your father. Come to the dark side. Yeah, that's what we end up with. And yeah, the other thing we're going to need to do with this, we're definitely going to need some fans in here. We're going to need a fan for some circulation. So yeah, fans, and then I'm thinking on top of that, I'm thinking about having some LED lights in some way. I didn't sand these edges yet, so they're pretty sharp. So with that, I'm thinking about doing definitely a fan, because that just gets pretty warm in here for sure. So we'll put some type of fan in here. We'll put in some foam, some, you know, really flexible foam or nice gentle foam that my dome can sit in there and rest, and so it's not hard and everything. And then we'll put like channels in the foam, and then, you know, or just strips so there's channels so my head can rest, the helmet can rest on the head, and then we can have the fan and that the air can circulate over my big wonderful brain, which has a few brain cells left in it. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to wire this up. And what I might end up doing for the fan is I might do some drill holes in here, so that way I can get some ventilation. So I'm thinking about drilling holes in here, and maybe even in, there's the top part there. I don't know if I want to put LEDs up there or just holes in there for ventilation. But yeah, there's definitely room where I could do that. I could drill through there. Oh yeah, I could definitely do that. So, and then, you know, maybe even some drill holes here. Maybe with that, because there's, if you look there in the front, you know, in these parts here, that might be kind of cool to put like LED lights in. So yeah, just so many different options, but definitely going to need some ventilation. We'll need some type of fan system in here, so that'll be an interesting little project to do, which will require batteries and switches and more batteries and lights and LEDs, and we'll see how all those things go. But we're a long way off from doing a final product on this, but I think this turned out pretty good. So it would be really nice to have like, you know, take like a switch, like a push switch, push activated switch, and drill through and just put like a press switch in here. So if I want to put on the fan, I can reach up, boom, hit that, and then, you know, maybe hit and do the LEDs to activate LEDs. I know, it's all kinds of wild stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if that ever comes to fruition. But like I said, I want to do cosplay build, and this is going to be it, the Doom Eternal Slayer. I want it to be a little bit bigger. I'm 6'2", and with this I'm probably adding on, probably going to add on about another inch, so that with some boots, probably about 6'3" or so. But I want to make this even bigger so that it's at least 7 foot tall. So in other words, on the boots of this thing, I'm going to get either some lifts that will add some height, or maybe I'll even do the stilts, the drywall stilts that people use. I don't know, those might be too high because I just want to add enough to where I can be 7 feet tall, and then have a cool armor set, and then which will look awesome. So anyway, yeah, we can see some of the pictures there. Yeah, that's going to look pretty cool. I'm really enjoying that. And I'm still waiting for a bunch of material to come in, so that way I can process the helmet. So I need to sand it. I need to, put in filler. I'm getting some wood filler. And because I live in Korea, it's kind of harder to get those things. So we got that going on. And then, do all that, prime all that, and then, start painting the helmet, and then start putting in those components, the foam, the fan. How I'm going to do the fan, I'm not sure. Where I'm going to put the fan, that's another interesting question. Do I drill holes in the front here so that way I can put the fan in the front? That's another question that I was asking myself and thinking about, that if I, get a small fan, I can put it up in the front here, and then that way it blows towards my face and just have a little bit of circulation. And then with maybe drilling some holes in the back, we can have some exit, the exit holes on the top, so that way I can get a little bit of airflow in here. So, and then putting in LED lights, and I don't know, we'll figure something out. But this is the helmet that we've got. So just doing a little test of this, nothing permanent right now as far as the visor, but I'm pretty encouraged with the results so far, and it's not too bad. I did this kind of quick. I think the longest part was heating up the glue gun, which took like 5-10 minutes or something, and then in about a minute, I glued all this down with just some shots on the inside of the helmet with the hot glue gun. I didn't do the whole perimeter, but I just wanted to see, proof of concept to see if this would work. So yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty cool project. And since I'm waiting for the other things to come in the mail, I might work on the helmet and the padding and stuff like that. But for example, that's what it's going to look like right there from Galactic Armory. We'll kind of resize this a little bit there. And if we pull this up, I think that is going to be some cool armor. We're talking armor that's, like I said, I want this to be 7 feet tall when I get into this stuff. And I'm 6'2" without shoes. So you throw shoes on there, I'm about 6'3", about 6'3". So, you throw on a few more inches on there. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to do lifts or if I'm going to do drywall stilts. That'll be kind of interesting to see. But the whole armor thing definitely looks cool. So, yeah, let's take a look at the back of the armor here. Let's pull this up. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. That's going to be some cool armor. And then I also found some files to where on the front of this, let's see if we can show it. Where is it? There it is. Boom. Booyah. Notice on the arms, on the front of the arms where the biceps are at, and we'll make this a little bit bigger so y'all can see this. And we'll turn this just a hair, nope, other direction. Okay. But you notice on the biceps, so on the biceps section of this armor, it's empty. And it was kind of like, I got some big arms. I think they're about 18 inches, which would look okay, but I want something a little bit, I don't want to just have my bare arms hanging out there. So I thought about, well, I could just wear a uniform, old Army uniform. I could put that on there, or a black shirt or something, just some dark camo shirt or something. I was really looking into that, but then I also found online on Colt's 3D page where somebody had some bicep sections that you could print. And so I downloaded those, I've got those, and then the same person also had the full-size boots. Because if we look at this down here, there's no full-size boot. It's just a covering for the boot, and it doesn't have the actual boot. So yeah, we're missing some boot action here. So we're going to be doing that. Matter of fact, let me see. Let me see if I can pull this file favorites. That's what I want. I want the favorites. That's what we're going to be looking at. File favorites. That's what I want. I want the favorites. That's what we're going to be looking at. And let's go to the saved files. And since you see what the non-boots looks like, what I want to end up doing is showing you what the boots look like. And boom, booyah. Oh, those look hot. Look at those babies. Now those are some awesome boots. Those are going to be good. Those are going to be awesome. And while that's huge, definitely what we could end up doing is using a combination of this because, yeah, and actually, we actually have, there's the file itself. Well, no, that's not the file itself. Somebody's actually wearing it, and it comes in like so. So this is going to be very interesting. So we got, some things, and then more importantly, what we end up having is these boots, that what you can end up doing is you can actually have a boot to go over a normal boot that looks high speed, low drag, buff, ready, bulky, ready to go, tear up some alien butt. And yeah, we're going to be adding that to the mix as well. So there's that. And then there was another thing that I wanted to take a look at, which was, there's another Doomslayer helmet, but I already have a helmet. And then they had the gloves. So somebody came up with some gloves. I'll throw these up here, and you can take a look at these. So we can see the gloves here and all of the 3D printed stuff. Those are put onto some gloves. And we'll take a look at the picture there. So, boom, same type of thing. You have some gloves and you have some articulation. It looks pretty cool. I think once you get that processed and you get the layer lines, you do some filler, sand those things down, and you end up doing the same color scheme of the Doom Eternal that we end up seeing here. That could be like a really, really cool costume. And I don't know if this one has the gloves on it. It has, it's hard to tell. I haven't even looked at all of the files. So that'll be interesting to take a look at. So, but the other gloves that I got from the Cults 3D website, those ended up being free. So no harm, no foul if I don't use them. So yeah, let's take a look at that. I'm kind of wondering. Doomslayer, blah, 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 gloves, full boots, Doomslayer helmet and armory, Doomslayer helmet, shield. There's a Doom shield that I might end up doing. And then for the files, we end up seeing, let's do an overlay on that, and let's see if we can take a look at screen share overlay. Boom. So there we go. Get rid of my little VPN baby. And Verithus, hey bro, how's it going? Yeah. You printed a pair of gloves already? No, not yet. I found gloves. But what we're doing is we're taking a look and seeing what we actually have in the files that I picked up from Galactic Armory to see if they have gloves. So I'm trying to do this little overlay thing, but I did print out the helmet. And of course, you know that I printed out the helmet, and then I put a visor on here that turned out that was just basically some UV privacy window covering stuff that you put on with water. And what I ended up doing is just kind of copying the shape of the helmet opening, for this thing, transferred it, and added a 1/2 inch to the UV protection film, and then cut that out. And then what I ended up doing is putting that onto the helmet and with some glue just as a proof of concept. And yeah, it turns out, let me get this out of the way a little bit. And boom, turned out there. So yeah, not bad. Worked out kind of good. So we need to do, again, it's just proof of concept to see how it works, and it's a little wonky, but I took minimal time to do it. Like I said, the longest thing to do to put this in there was actually the 10 or 15 minutes to let the glue gun heat up. And it took about a minute for me to just kind of spot weld with some hot glue. but, you know, and I got a little ding up there where, you know, I touched the film, you know, but I really, this isn't the final product, but still, that's not bad. That's not bad. Throw in some bend holes, some LEDs, and, you know, a little bit more time and attention to that, it could come out really well. So anyway, yeah, the visor, I was, like I said, it's a privacy film, and it worked out great. So, yeah, with that, you can see out, but you can't see in unless you get really, really super close. But considering this is probably going to be for Halloween, not this year, maybe next year, or hopefully sooner if there's a cosplay. This September, we're going to Vietnam, to Sapa, and in Hanoi, and a couple other places, I think, for about 2, maybe 3 weeks, whatever. Come back. Obviously, I won't have this all printed out. Hell, the gun itself is going to take 194 hours to print out, and that's not including the armor or anything else or the processing. So, yeah. But here it ends up. We have left arm, right arm, belt, calf, forearm left, forearm right, hand right, hand left. Ooh, so we do have hand plate, index 1, 2, 3, middle finger, pinky, all of that stuff. So we do have gloves that came with the Galactic Armory. That is cool. Good. Pre-cut for smaller printers. Don't have to worry about that. Thighs, torso undersuit left and undersuit right. Man, I'm getting a little excited about this. The belt. Ooh, got the belt with the butt plate, the cod plate, hip box left, hip box right, rear belt box. So I guess a number of those. So yeah, that whole thing, I think this is going to be pretty cool. And this is going to be, yeah, like I said, it's going to be my first little cosplay thing that we got going on. And yeah, kind of excited about that. I'm not sure why there's flickering going on with the video. We had lots of problems earlier on with audio and video syncing up, and it's just kind of crazy stuff. With an earlier video, I was talking about what's going on here in Korea with rain and racist umbrellas and presidential underwear. So yeah, if you're wondering about that, you can go check out that video. That was kind of fun. But yeah, really looking into this and getting a little excited. I wish there was more, but it's going to take a while. Like I said, the weapon itself is going to take a minute or two to do. And matter of fact, I'll show y'all what that looks like. Let's see if we can get this. And do this, and do that, and I want to, what do I want to do? I want to open the project of 13 prints, 13 plates, or 13 parts, and what that is going to look like. So we'll just go ahead and we'll do that, and then we'll do a little camera overlay here, boom, of, I think that's the right one. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. It's almost like I know what I'm doing. So anyway, this is the gun. And the gun is going to be interesting because actually, do I have a picture of the gun? Screen captures, pictures, documents. Seriously? I think I got a picture. Hold on. I'm pretty sure I got a picture. We'll go here. We'll go there. We'll go here. The heavy cannon is what we have. The Luban cut, Creality print cut, and there is that. That's not what I want. Seriously. There it is. So I ended up getting a 1-month subscription to Luban, and basically what you can end up doing. Wow, look at that. Y'all can see that? Yeah. So in Luban, what you can end up doing, not only scaling up the item, but it will cut the mesh based on the size of your printer, the X, Y, and Z axis. Mine's 350 cubed. And then depending on how big it is, you can put different connectors on there. So we ended up doing that. And I printed out that is going to be 13 parts. And so it's going to come out to 1.75 kilograms, 194 hours of print time. Assembly is going to take 12 minutes. So 194 hours and 12 minutes or whatever. You got to have some glue time, you got some dowels you got to put in, but those are all the different pieces for this and putting this together. And that is going to be, how long was that? It was 1,451 millimeters. And if we take a look at that, that's going to end up being, let me get rid of that right there. Boom. So 1,451, that's going to be basically 59 and a half. It's almost 5 feet long. That is going to be huge. It's supposed to be the gun that is like, it's supposed to be like a 50 cal. So it's big and stuff like that. Bertha says, very nice. I just finished up my last project, a statue replica for a friend. Large size prints are fun. Yeah, and this is going to be interesting. So I haven't solidified everything on this yet. And Ferris says, surprise, it takes 194 hours. Did you check with your slicer? 1.57 grams of filament. You can usually print it in less than 48, even with high detail. That's kind of interesting because when I took all this stuff and I put it into Creality Print, let's just take a look at that. When we look at Creality Print, we do a little camera overlay stuff here, boom. And what I ended up finding out is that for all of these items, these 13 plates and all the items, and let's say this is the biggest item. Let's see if we can make that. And when we start doing the slicing, you can see how a lot of it is hollow. But even then, when I slice this plate out, it's going up, what is the Z distance? Come on, there we go. We click on this, the Z distance is what, 271? I think, X, Y, and Z, 257. So that's a lot, and we're doing a layer height of 0.2. Well, heck, let's just slice the plate and see. It'll be interesting to see what that turns out to be. But through Creality Print, you can slice all of the 13 plates, and it came out to something like either 197 or, yeah, it was 190 or 194 hours, 197, because you've got supports and things like that, but it was just shy of 200. So infilling and some of the other settings ended up, let's see, dun, 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 na, 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 na. Ferris says for the statue was about 5.5 kilograms and it took a total of about 70 hours. Interesting. So yeah, I need to take a look at this. And this is going to take a while. Layer height 0.2. Arachne for wall generator. We're doing 5 walls on this. So maybe that's why. Maybe I need to drop it down to 4. That might be something that I need to do. What was the final weight of everything? That's a good question. Good question. Did I have that? Well, there's that one. Total assembly time, weight 1.75 kilograms. Printing 194 hours. And again, I put in the information, but I don't know how Luban knows how fast you can print. So maybe there's a setting in Luban that I need to take a look at and see what happens with that. So yeah, and that's just a picture I took to, kind of show me what I got going on. So here's that one part. This is the biggest part of the rifle. 2 days, 11 hours and 51 minutes. We're talking blah, 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 blah. 1,643 grams of filament, which is about 551, and it's about $32.88 based on my price for filament being here in Korea. So Ferrithus was like, I was using 4 walls, slicing it again right now to see where I ended up. I am using 5 walls, so maybe, let's take a picture of this with the 5 walls, and we got that, and let's just throw that up on the screen. We'll put that right there, and now we'll go back and let's change this to 4 walls and see how this pops out. And top shell layers is 4, top shell thickness 0.8, sparse infill density I put 10. Usually people have recommended doing like 15 to 20, but I was like, that's a lot. And yeah, that can eat up right there. So I'm using gyroid. I don't know, in your experience, is 10 too much? And again, it's a cosplay prop, and it's going to be 5 feet long. And yeah, that's going to be interesting. So anyway, density 10%, gyroid is what I put for that. We'll slice the plate and we'll see what we come up with there. So we've got our first one, which showed it was going to be this amount here. And then we changed the walls from 5 to 4. And then the density, change that down to 10 instead of 20. So I think that's going to be significantly less. So, but yeah, I'm not sure. This is going to be my first arm. Okay, wow, interesting. Yeah, I'm like, okay, and you know, that doesn't count, well, it does count supports. So probably just using, what am I using? I don't even know what I'm using. Tree auto supports, so we'll see. Bertha says, gyroid could be it. Maybe more complex to print. I usually use triangles for strength or adaptive cubic if I want to save materials. Oh, okay. Yeah, I like the gyroid because when you watch it go, it doesn't like collide like regular grid infill, which somebody recommended. It says, hey, just a little nervous step to do. But let's see what this ends up being. And this G-code preview, we'll throw this up on the screen. And there's the other one. And so we've got a difference. We got 2 days, 11 hours, and 51 minutes. On this one, we end up 2 days, 7 hours, and 30 minutes. But Ferrithus was talking about changing some stuff. Triangles for strength or adaptive cubic. Let's try adaptive cubic. I just recently read about that. What is it? Okay, back up here. Or, no, it's right up here. Yeah, okay. We're getting there. We're trying to figure out. So triangles or adaptive cubic. So which one is just adaptive cubic? Let's just run with that and see what happens. And Ferrith says, comes out to 75 hours here and 4,700 grams of material. So let's run this with the adaptive cubic and see how this turns out. So we can save, by just changing the walls, we can save about 200 grams on the walls. Still 2 days, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We can save 4 hours off of that. Save a couple of dollars. That'll be interesting. Oh, looking at your line type overview in your slicer, where the walls take you about 25 hours for you, infill another 11. Yeah. So here, let's move this out of the way. Down there, move that there. And we can end up seeing this 2 days, 4 hours and 51 minutes. And again, it's going to be about 1498. And that's for the adaptive cubic. So we'll put that right there. So it's still, so 16, 1462, 1498. Let's try the triangles. Let's see how that does. Yeah, I saw that. On the infill doesn't take as long. So we'll slice this up with triangles and we'll see how that goes. So yeah, it's kind of like, more on infill. Only 6 hours for the infill. Total time, we're going to save some time. We'll save some filament. I've never done anything with triangles. I went through a long time ago, and looked at the different infill patterns and just kind of did a model and then did the infill and just went through all the different settings, or selections that you can do. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that looks cool. And I made some notes, but I don't know where they're at. So this one here ends up being 1611. So that triangle, wow, that triangle ends up adding some more. So we'll throw this seriously, what did I just do? I lost it. Let's do that again. Seriously. I'm just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Blah, 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 blah. There we go. Now we can bring this onto our thing, and we're good to go. Do that. Go back to this, and on. Now, what am I doing? Just having so many problems here. So then that one with the triangles ends up being 2 days and 7 hours. That's 2 days and four hours. So that's the adaptive cubic. And then we had the regular one with the gyroid, and then we reduced it down to, with this one here, reduce that from 5 walls to 4 walls. But if we take a look at, let's drop all these off and get a larger look at this here. And we'll make this a bigger picture. And we'll put this. Seriously? I'm just not having a good day with pictures today. Let's try this again. Screen capture. Boom. That. Not going to touch anything. Just going to let it do its thing. I'll go back to the, there it is. And then we'll drag this up here. Good Lord. Seriously, I think I was building a rocket or something. So there we've got inner walls, 34% overhang, bridge, gap, support. Ends up 8 hours, 55 minutes, 16% support interface. So yeah, that'll be interesting to take a look at all that different stuff. And the support is 8.5 hours. So yeah, interesting stuff. Looking at your G-code preview, I would be a bit worried about the super tall, thin trees, though. I've had pretty bad experience with trees. They also make me nervous. Yeah, and matter of fact, I was just watching some videos on some different settings on this stuff. So a guy was talking about, who was it? Maker's Muse guy was talking about doing tall prints and with the supports that he ends up using, and he ended up using like on the real tall stuff where, like you said, if the supports, either normal supports, auto supports, or the tree supports, that if they get really tall, you're going to have a lot of movement. So yeah, he said that can be detrimental, and I could see where that happens because it just gets higher and higher and higher. You have less support, and there's a possibility of those supports swaying, which could mess up your print. And what he ended up doing was using the normal supports, default, threshold angle at like 45%. And what was the other thing he ended up doing? it was, let me see if I can reference my notes, because I actually took notes on that. Top Z distance under supports, base pattern normal from rectilinear to rectilinear grid. That was it. The rectilinear grid for blah, blah, blah. Where is it? Under supports. Yeah, we might as well just go there and take a look at that. So over here on the right-hand side, and you have normal supports, about a 45-degree threshold angle, and coming down to base pattern normal, instead of rectilinear where you have that, he went to rectilinear grid, and it provides a better support for that. Let's throw me a little camera overlay on there. Boom. And yeah, he ended up doing that, and instead of having the normal supports that are just kind of a little flimsy in itself, it puts a rectilinear grid, which makes it like a giant girder. So if you have those real tall items, you won't get that sway like you would, like you're saying about the tree supports, and with the settings that he ended up having. What was some of the other settings? This is some of the other settings. Base pattern normal from rectilinear to rectilinear grid. Paint the supports on in case there's areas that are really small to, brim and so on and so forth. So nothing too out of the ordinary. But he did some test pieces in ABS, I think it was, and where he had a real thin piece that was like 3 millimeters, and it kind of curved up and went like this and had some pieces going out. I'm sure you can find the video. Maker's Muse is the guy. And pretty impressive. His supports came off like awesome. He painted them on, and to encompass a little bit more because of those areas. But for something like this, let's see if we can take a look at this. So that ends up 1 day, 23 hours. Support is 5 hours and 14 minutes, and it's only 10%. So it might be onto something here. But let's take a look at this, and I'll show you what I'm talking about with that rectilinear grid that looked really, really good. So my computer is like, oh, what are you doing? And so with the regular rectilinear, you kind of get those individual towers that can kind of sway and everything. But if we take a look at these, this ends up being really cool. If my computer doesn't, and there it is. And what you end up seeing is that it creates that grid within that rectilinear tower and kind of combines them all together, so you have a more sturdy foundation that goes up, especially for those taller prints. So yeah, I was pretty impressed with that. If you had something like this little green piece down here, did you get the little pun, green piece? Let's see if we can pull this down. Oh, my computer is just lagging big time. That's because we got the, but there you can see that you have the rectilinear going in, and instead of the normal supports, which would be just kind of a little shaky, this provides a real good scaffolding system to provide a solid support system for those taller prints. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty good video, and it made a lot of sense. He doesn't use it for everything, but for real tall things that need supports, he was like, hey, that's pretty good. He said he uses them on helmets as well, but then he also paints on his own supports. So there's something to be said for that. Now, on some of these, obviously, we're not going to have to paint supports. Maybe, I don't know, I doubt it. But for something like this, it's pretty much just run and paint it, and you should be good to go. So at least that's what I'm thinking based on all my non-experience of printing out cosplay parts. Yeah, crazy stuff that we got going on. So yeah, interesting stuff that we got with this. Again, it looks like it's going to be crazy, but this rifle ends up that it's got a lot of, it's got some thick walls that we saw on there. So, and then again, if you're doing 4 walls, let's see if we can go back to this. So you see we got the 4 walls, and then it's hollowed out for the most part, except for, you know, our infill that is right there, and then another 4 walls. But a lot of that is hollow. So I don't know, with the way that this is built, maybe I could do 3 walls. I don't know. I think I would probably stick with the 4 walls because I wanted to have some durability. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Let's see. You can probably get rid of some of those supports where it ties to support bridges. Yeah, that's true. And that was another thing he brought up in the video was that he paints on his own supports so he can, you know, put supports where they're needed. And if it's a real small area, he doesn't want just a tiny tower going up to where it could move. You know, he'll make that area a little bit bigger and he'll encompass that edge, and so it kind of cups the model. I don't think we'll need that here, but except at the top. But he took off those supports and it was like butter, and the no marring. It was really, really a sweet demonstration that he gave. So normal supports just have one big negative of being unable to reach parts that are not exactly above the build plate unless you turn off supports only on build plate. Oh, okay, yeah. The big negative, you're unable to reach that are not exactly above the build plate unless you turn off supports only on build plate. Okay, we will keep that in mind. Matter of fact, let's just unclick that and we'll just slice it again, see what happens. And then this is cosplay, so things will be dropped and moved around. Stick with the 4 walls. That's kind of the, thanks for that. I appreciate that. Scouring the interwebs and videos and asking Chat GPT and Grok and all that, hey, what is the recommended, you know, how many walls for cosplay items, you know, and weapons or armor or helmets. Helmets, it ended up being like three walls. For cosplay, it was like 4 to 5. And for the other things, for like the armor, it had to be durable. So I want to say that was like 4 or 5 as well. So just a lot of different recommendations. So yeah, the 4 walls. I'll stick with the 4 walls. 4 is good. Trees just don't grow up. They grow sideways too. Normal supports grow only straight up. Yeah, yep, that's true. So yeah, kind of. I guess it would depend on what you're printing and the supports but you know, for these rifle pieces, pretty much it's not bad. I had worse overhangs with the helmet when I printed that out than I've seen with these rifle parts. So it's just kind of cut and boom and dried. So I'm not really expecting any bad things with the weapon. So we'll see how that goes. Let's go back to, since it finished slicing, 2 days, 10 hours, 1,700 plus for filament. Support is going to be 23%. So yeah, there's a lot more support material compared to, you know, the 10 and the 16 and so on and so forth. But it gave some really good results. So I don't know which one I'm going to do yet. So, but yeah, that was just on, I took off on the build plate only. So as we can see here, on build plate only, I took that off but then he also said that if you have supports onto the model itself, like we see there, he said that was kind of problematic because those, the supports that connect to the model down here on the bottom, like we see here, he said those were a bear for him to get off. So it's not good to not get off. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll just keep it on the build plate only. I don't know. it's just, we'll have to do the first piece and see how it works. And if it works out, then boom, we'll see how that goes. So Ferris says, I'm excited for that thing. When are you starting that project? Well, like I said, I got the helmet done, and I'm currently waiting for the wood filler and all of that stuff so that I can start processing this and getting the all of that ugliness filled and smoothed out. And then the next thing in line is going to be this rifle. So I'm going to do the rifle next, and that'll be 194, 200 some odd hours. And then, yeah, that should be fun. So I'm excited. So we'll do the helmet, the weapon. I don't know if I'm going to do a shield, but we'll just stick with the rifle for now. And then hopefully Galactic Armory comes out with that Armor Smith type program that they're working on so that I can get this thing properly scaled, because I want to be 7 feet tall. So I'm going to have some lifts in my boots, or maybe do some stilts to give me a few more inches to hit 7 feet high. And then, of course, scale the armor up for me. And yeah, I just don't want to play with the scaling, and I'd rather have the program to do that. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. Supports that grow out of the part will be a pain to get off. I only do that if I really have no choice. Yeah, that's what that Maker's Muse guys was saying as well. And there's I printed out something where I forgot about that. On the build plate only, I had that unchecked, and some supports were on the model itself. Yeah, it was kind of rough to get off, and it left some marks. So yeah, I'd probably just not mess with that. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Top Z distance 0.25 is usually what I'm good at, or 0.24. That rectilinear grid looks pretty good, but then again, I don't know if I'll need that for. I don't know. It's pretty decent. These prints go up to about almost the max distance of the Z height on this. So, and I cut back about in Luban. I set it for like 325 or something like that, and then a 10 millimeter kind of safe zone with that. So, but it's pretty tall. Matter of fact, I can see how tall this tallest part is. XYZ 257. So, we got some room, but then I also tried to make sure that, we had some wiggle room, and tried to get the most materials so that I could join this thing together and get some dowel supports in there. I'm going to have to probably redo it because of the lack of material, and I have to do some small dowels for that to join this up. I can do some big ones, but it's going to be a bunch of small ones. So yeah, there's the thing right there. So 13 plates, yeah, about 294, 97 or 200 hours, somewhere around there. Yeah, not bad. So, and that's another question I have. So if I have things like this, should I do and like put 2 of these on here, and then load up with the smaller stuff, and then print that would reduce the number of plates, but I don't think that would reduce the number of hours, because you're still printing each thing, but it's just going to be on the plate. So I don't know. We'll play around with that. Right now, I just want to keep it simple. I have the, in Luban, it's got 13 parts. I just put each part on its own plate, and just to keep it simple so I don't screw anything up. Because I did that the first time. I'm like, oh, well, I can add a bunch of parts to, and then I forgot some parts, and I was like, yeah, that was kind of stupid. So, yeah. Fairther says, if you have a dome, like on top of the helmet, you can also play with the variable layer height to smooth that out a bit without needing to post-process. And, I, about halfway through the print, this was, I think it was right about here, that I had seen videos about that, and it reminded me that I had seen that variable height, and it was like, damn it. So it's not too bad. I mean, It's not too bad. It could be worse, but a little bit of filler in there, wood filler, sand it down, and then throw some filler primer paint, spray paint, and I think it will be good to go. And I think that paint on the side and everything, there's nothing really to sand down. There are some areas like on the areas here that you can end up seeing that are a little rough. We can fill those in and sand those, but I could have done better. Could have done better with the supports. I should have actually looked at that and painted the supports on, honestly. But, oh well. Still came out pretty good. I like it. So we'll see how that goes. So, yeah, that is going to be an interesting process, and it's going to take a little while. The armor pieces, again, I'm kind of waiting for the Armor Smith type program that Galactic Armory is supposedly working on. So hopefully that'll come out this year, and I can get that after I print this rifle. Maybe I'll do an axe or the Slayer sword. Maybe I'll do the shield. I'm not sure. I'm definitely going to do the rifle. Maybe I'll do the axe, and then that way I can put that across my back, and that'll be kind of a cool looking thing. So I have the rifle, the BMG, and then the axe on the back. I think that could look pretty cool too, and then go into building up and doing the armor once I get that program. Bertha says, loading up the build plate means less interaction with the printer, but also comes with a risk if one part fails without you noticing all the parts fail. Exactly. So that's another reason why I was like, well, I'll just put everything one piece on one plate, because if that one thing fails, it's not going to screw up all the other parts. But you could print by object. But I think a lot of these are so big, maybe that would work. So you print one object, then print another object, then print another object. And so if one of those three things doesn't print out, it can print the other two. So that you could do that, but I don't know. I think I'll just keep it simple, and we'll just do one part per plate and just call it good. Bertha says, yes, I think you'll look awesome in the full armor. You definitely got the height and frame. Yeah, I think that armor's going to really pull it off. And the color scheme of that armor, if I can replicate that or come pretty darn close to it, that would be hot. That would be hot indeed. So, I like the color scheme on that. Boom. There it is. And that just looks really, really good. I think that'll definitely be an awesome piece. So, and then make it so, like I said, I can end up being like 7 feet tall with the big effing gun, and then the axe on the back, strapped to the back and everything. That could look, and then throw in some LED lights. Boom, there it is. That, I think that would kill. That would rock around here at a cosplay or, Halloween. They have a bunch of people. They have actually a festival and people get all dressed up and they have a costume thing. And honestly, I think last year there's one or two costumes that were kind of impressive. The rest of them were just kind of like, it's better than nothing. But I think something like this could be really good. If I can get it to 7 feet or higher, definitely 7 feet, this could work out good. And again, throwing in some LED lights, some bells and whistles on the gun itself, have some glowing parts on there with some LEDs, which would be, that would be interesting. Yeah, that would be good. So yeah, good stuff. Print by object, you need to pay attention to the object height so it doesn't crash into the top glass plate when the printer starts the next object. Yeah, and the K2 Plus has that thing where not only that, but it has like a proximity thing. So if you do that print by object, it'll say these objects are too close together. and I was playing around with that a little bit, and so you'd have to move, and it actually shows you, if you're in the danger zone forever, or for example. So yeah, that's kind of an option as well. But let's just keep it simple. One part per plate. I mean, it's not going to kill me. It's still going to be, 194 hours regardless. I think. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. This is going to be my first cosplay armor. Again, I'm geeking out in my old age. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. I want to show you what that gun looks like. No, I don't want to save anything. I just want brand new project, and I want to show you what that gun looks like, just in and of itself. And it's big. It started out small when I bought it. It appears to be too large. You want to scale it to fit the bed? Hell, why not? Yeah, that way we can just see it. And boom. Bertha says, cosplay armor is also on my list. Still need to figure out what would look good on me, though. But that's the thing. I mean, anything could look good. Anything that's got a helmet, you look good. So you could be anything. And even then, kind of like with this armor, it has the biceps that are open. You could throw on some black camis or something like that. You do some Berserker armor, Warhammer 40K. I mean, it's just, I picked out the Doom Eternal Slayer because it's not as big as Warhammer armor, and I don't think I'd want to print Warhammer armor on a 3D printer because that would get pretty heavy. That would have to be like EVA foam, and you could do the helmet and 3D print it, and some of the emblems, the Aquillas and things like that. You could do all of the little trinkets and things that hang off his belt in 3D printing, with FDM printing. But the majority of that would have to be EVA foam, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. So, or another ball of blue tack, depending on how you look at it. But here's what that rifle looks like. Let me go ahead and make this bigger. And so that way we can zoom in and we can take a look at this. And, you know what we'll do? Let's make this white or gray. There we go, gray. And so that is what the rifle looks like. So does that look cool or what? And that is going to be, like I said, what was it, 47 inches? Yeah, it was like almost 5 feet long. So, that's like, good Lord, I'm 6'2", and that's 5 feet. That is one big honkin' gun. But you can see the details on this, and some cool stuff would be, like in this piece right here, if you could throw in some LEDs there, maybe one down there, and then, there, just kind of have some accent pieces, and then, I don't know, you could do a wicked paint job on this. That would be awesome. So yeah, that's just a cool looking gun. And I've had my eye on this for some time, even before I picked out the Doomslayer armor, because that just looks really, really cool. So, throw on some optics or something like that. You could probably even drill through that there, and then drill through the front, and then you could put, your own little optic in there, or at least a hole to make it, and then put some of that UV window privacy cling on there, that we did for the visor, and put that on there. That would be a cool little detail. So yeah, I think that would be awesome. Definitely be awesome. Fertha says, need to find a cosplay that works with my body shape. Most of them are tall and beefy guys. I'm 6'1" and more of an athletic build. I'll come across something eventually. Um, yeah, I mean, you'll find something. I know you will. This is going to be my first one. So I thought this looks cool enough and I like it. It's just something that I thought looked really cool and just, just like, hey, that's cool. So, yeah, this will be a good one. This will be a good one. And the paint scheme isn't that bad. A lot of this could be done with rattle cans, spray paints and stuff like that. Tape things off, paint. It doesn't look that hard. Distress of the armor, that's not hard to do. Again, I think that'll work out pretty good. The gun looks awesome, and it's big, so you can add a compartment for some of those electronics and lights. Yeah, that's another thing. I'm gonna have to brush off my old electronics experience, and of course, all of that I never did battery-powered stuff. It was always just connected to boards and power supplies, and prison doors and stun fences and PTZ cameras that would zoom in when zones were set off, and so yeah, I'll have to brush off that stuff. And LED and battery hookup and switch. Yeah, how hard can that be? So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. Just so much stuff you could do, though. I mean, you've seen the cosplay items, where guys have the armor, and then they have like LED lights everywhere, and then they have like atomized water, smoke pouring out of whatever. It can get pretty detailed and crazy wild. I don't think I'll go that wild, but I'll definitely do LED lights. I want to do LED lights on the helmet. I want to do them on the gun. And I'm also thinking about maybe doing it on the armor itself. And I might print out that rifle as a small one just to, yep, I'm going to print out that rifle as a small one. To wet my whistle. But the armor, I'm thinking about doing that as well. Let's get rid of this stuff. I already know I look cool. My wife, when I did that, she just shakes her head and rolls her eyes. But with the armor, so like put LED lights. Okay, let's see what we got going on here. So for LED lights, I'm thinking about putting some LED lights in these openings here. Maybe do some holes in the front, and so that I can put a little fan up to suck air in and blow air out, and then put LED lights on these here, and maybe up on the top, on the back. I got to find some place to have some holes. So if the fan is here, right behind the front of this face, and I want to have some holes, so I'll probably put some holes on the back up here so the air draws up over my head, and we'll do channels of foam for that, and then maybe even do some holes down here on the bottom of the helmet to just have, some other avenues. Ooh, we got some, look at that. So we got some vents that we could drill out, and we could have more airflow. Oh yeah, that'll work. So many things I want to do. So we got vents on the back that we can use. We can drill some more holes, so that'll work. We can do some holes up top. We'll put some foam ribbing for the padding of the head, and that allows for the air to blow through those channels to cool the head off, because this is going to get warm. And then the little fan in the front, and we'll drill some holes here. We'll put some little, dark fabric or whatever, so that you can't see in, but we can still get air. And then trying to figure out what we're going to do for lights. And where in the hell am I going to put those? Somewhere in here. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited. That, and then for the armor, man, how... Where could we put lights on the armor? How about right up there, just above the nipple? That could be a good place for a light. Maybe Where else could we put it? Shoulder. We could do some stuff on the shoulder. You know, maybe like right there on the center or something like that. Says, I've started moving on from full-size Arduinos to microcontroller chips. Dirt cheap, very small, super powerful. I plaster them all over that armor and drive lights using AA batteries. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So that would be, you could put like, you know, right there. You put, you know, maybe there, put some different colors, you know, put some red and green or whatever. Just try to see how that would look. Let's see, what else do we got on here? So the back. Down that spine would be good. So like right in there, that would look pretty good to have some lights either on the sides of the spine or in those spaces on the spine itself, probably the sides. So that would kind of give some depth to that. That would be good for the chest piece. I don't think the legs or anything would need anything. Let's see, what else do we got on the side? Yeah, you could do something like right there or right there. Have some accent lights. You could probably even put some on the hand, but you could just go to town and just put lights everywhere on this thing. But man, that looks like a cool piece of kit. Some cool armor that we got going on. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, and the color scheme isn't that bad. You're looking at what? A yellowish orange. You're looking at some OD green, maybe some darker green, and then you're looking at, you know, some brownish gray or some, you know, some metal type, and then distress it. Man, that could be pretty interesting. You can use those magnetized on a belt for power banks and electronics. And funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking about that. If you look at the belt on this thing, let's go back to this, and it's like, come on, there we go. That's just screaming for power packs. You're not going to be, you know, I mean, look at that. You got all kinds of room to put some switches, to put some battery packs in there. Yeah, you definitely got room. And then on the back, do we need battery packs? We could have battery packs for days. So yeah, that's another reason why I picked this armor, was the fact that, you know, it looks cool, but there's so much there where you could put electronics and batteries and so on and so forth. You know, have your batteries all in the belt, and even, you know, some of the boards or whatever, and then just have the wires in a quick disconnect. Boom. You know, once you got everything, all the armor on, you just connect it together, and you could just run from the battery pack on the belt. So yeah, and even yeah, ooh man, just getting excited about this. But yeah, it's definitely a thing. Definitely looking forward to it. So we'll definitely have to play around with that and see what goes on. Yeah. Maybe add a fan in the helmet for ventilation. Oh yeah, definitely. That's what I was talking. I wore this for a few minutes around the house as my wife was like, "Oh my God, I married a child." And I was thinking about putting a fan right up in this area here, because there's a lot of room and my jaw doesn't, you know, fill up this area. So we could definitely put a fan there. And then, like I was talking about, you know, we could drill in the holes in the front here, and then have some holes in the back, you know, to, you know, force the air out or give the air some place to get out and run across my head, because it's going to get warm in there for sure. So definitely going to do that. So good stuff. Yeah. I mean, so much we could do with this. And the only thing that I would probably like to do, Like when we look at the picture of this armor, you notice the visor is kind of greenish. I might try to see if I could find some greenish, window tint covering stuff. So that could be pretty cool. But even then, even if I don't, this turned out pretty decent, and that's just a little 1 to 2 minute job. This was just that proof of concept thing, and yeah, it's got some wrinkles in it and stuff, but it works. And if I took more time and more attention to detail, I could get it looking a lot better. But maybe do the little green if we could find that. But I'm happy with that color as well. I think that could draw it in. But yeah, not too many colors. Distressing wouldn't be bad. You could probably get some. I've already started getting spray can paints and stuff. For the helmet and things like that. To start doing that, I need to get some metallic colors as well for the helmet area. So yeah. I actually like the copper look that you got right now. It looks like it belongs on the Mars surface, which is where the Slayer is home for me. Yeah, I like that. I think the contrast on that with the green and the silver, and then with that bronze type of look, I think that'll look really good. So I'm kind of with you on that. But then I also like the green reflective as well. So I don't know. Maybe I could do both and try both and see which one works the best. So that's what we got going on. So yeah, it's not going to be a quick project. It's going to be a little bit more involved. Yeah, it's going to be a thing. We'll see how it goes. But like I said, the next one is going to be the rifle, and I'll print out a smaller rifle and we'll just put it on top of my computer or whatever, hang it on the wall. Just kind of a smaller one, maybe like that. So take a look at that. And then paint that up and mock that up. And then once I get into actually printing the rifle out, 200 hours later, we'll put that thing together, process that, boom, and paint that. And then hopefully, like I said, Galactic Armory will have that Armor Smith program that they're working on. They keep putting little teaser things out there. Oh, look at what you can do, and you can measure, and do everything. And I was like, man, that would be pretty cool. So they just need to keep working on it. And it's going to be for Windows and Mac. So you know the deal. Once you go Mac, you never go back. At least I haven't. So anyway, yeah, that's what we got going on. Unleashing the power, testing the Doom Eternal Slayer helmet with the visor, that proof of concept with just some little security film that you put on windows with some water, peel off the thing and you're good to go. I didn't even peel off the back end of this. I just cut it as it was and put it in there. So I don't know. Which brings to mind, maybe I could get some more thicker plastic that would hold the shape better, and then I could put this film on that, cut it into the shape like this, the visor, and just add like maybe a 1/4 inch more to this, and then put this onto that, and then put the whole thing into the helmet. That's doable as well. So a lot of ideas running through the ether. So yeah, that's what we got going on. Once you go back, there's no way back. Apple locks you into its walled garden. That's true. But since I've gone Mac, I don't have viruses. I wish Apple would do more advancements on things like their phones and all that. They're so far behind Samsung, it's not even funny. It's like, ooh, big release for Apple on their iPhone, a new pastel color, and it's like, or they do something that Samsung's been doing for like 10 years or something. They're just so behind the power curve. Ferris says, you may be able to print a frame for the plastic to hold its shape. Wunderbar. That is a wonderful idea. And I can go through. I don't know if I'll be able to do that. Well, yeah, I can. I should. I could just slice I don't know how I do it, but just be able to slice this piece out, like you said, make a frame, cut it on the inside because it's a little pronounced in there. And it would only have to be like, what, 3-4 millimeters thick or whatever. So I could end up having a frame. And like you said, I could put that film or plastic in a film, whatever it is. And then I would get it really smooth on there. And I did save this as a 3MF. So I still have this file with the exact measurements. So good on me for doing that. That's an excellent idea. Thank you. I wouldn't have thought of that. So yeah, good stuff. We will get those things going. Brilliant idea. Brilliant idea. That's why I like hanging around smart people. People who have good ideas. Verithus says, it's PLA. You can print the cutting template you have from a flat frame and then bend it in the shape using warm water. Oh. Okay. That sounds like a good idea as well. But I'm wondering if I can cut it. That would be some detailed cutting that I would have to do to get that frame on the inside of the model. That would be, I don't know, somebody would have to do that. That would be a pretty detailed thing to try to cut that up in dry palette, Doomslayer helmet, auto, assembled, coffee doser. I think I do have that. And that would be interesting to, yeah, because I know you can slice things. And let me show you what I'm talking about here. So there is Creality Print, and there's the helmet. And boom, there it is. And if we zoom in here, we can see, you know what, it'd probably be better if it was in gray. Yep, there it is. Imagine that. What are the odds? So yeah, like you said, you've got this edge here that if I could cut that out from this, even if it takes me a while or whatever. But yeah, basically take that and, like you said, use that as a frame. And the reason I would want to do it like this is cut all this out, and just to get that piece would be able to have that perfectly formed frame, like you said, and then I could mount that plastic film and whatever else on there, and that would be good to go. I don't know. I'll have to play around with that. That's an interesting thing. I could do it flat. Flat frame and then bend it in shape using warm water. Still, that's probably an easier way to do it. That's what I've done in the past with armor pieces. Dunk them in hot water and then press fit them into my body. Works really good actually, because PLA becomes pliable at low temps. So cool. I could end up stealing my wife's hairdryer and just go to town, or like you said, doing some hot water and boom, run that and see how that goes. So yeah, cool stuff. Cool stuff. But yeah, I think that works out pretty good. So yeah, good stuff going on. Yeah, I'm going to have to start looking into electronics, see how that works out. Pretty much I could probably just do the lights in the helmet, have a quick disconnect wire, have wires running down the armor going to the utility belt pack where the batteries are going to be able to plug in there. Boom, Bob's your uncle, you're good to go. And that battery pack on the sides or whatever, yeah, you could put all of your batteries there. You wouldn't have to make anything up or put any batteries inside the helmet. I probably could. There's a lot of room on the inside, but just being able to have a wire and plug into the battery pack on your waist on that belt system, that would be the way to go. So yeah, cool stuff, cool stuff. So anyway, yeah, definitely. Thanks for the good ideas on that, and the PLA and the dunking and all of that stuff. Um, Visor, little work on the visor stuff to make that better. That is definitely going to be the bomb. So with that, yeah, that's going to be some good stuff for that helmet. I think that's going to turn out really, really well. So yeah, boom, there's the helmet we got it in gray. I think that'll turn out really well. And like I said, the next thing is going to be the rifle that we're going to print, and last thing is going to be the armor. So yeah, it'll probably be next year by the time I get this all done. And hopefully there's like a cosplay thing going on before Halloween next year. But if not, that'll just give me a lot of time to just really pimp out this armor and helmet and try to make it look as cool as possible. So anyway, with that being said, it is 5:42 p.m. and I'm starving. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end this video. And yeah, that's what we got going on. Fun stuff. Pretty excited about this. First cosplay armor. Again, I'm walking around the house with the helmet on. My wife is just like rolling her eyes. Seriously, really? You're going to wear that in public? And it's, oh yeah, I'm going to wear it in public. So she knows. It's, yeah. I feel like there's always a cosplay thing going on somewhere. Yeah, there is. And in Korea, locally, not so much. Usually in Seoul, they will have those things. I haven't seen anything here yet, but there's a possibility. But then I wasn't really looking for around here. So maybe the military bases got some cosplay stuff going on. There's some nerd groups. I'll have to ask the local nerds and see if they know of anything. That would be pretty good. So anyway, yeah, like I said, we're going to finish this up, and yeah, appreciate that. Bertha says, have a good rest of your day, Steve. Good seeing you. Good seeing you as well, sir. Thank you for the good ideas. Always good to have smart people around. I need all the help I can get. But with that, again, everybody else, the few other people that are watching, like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. If you got questions or suggestion tips, you can email me. I always answer my emails. Might take a couple of days, but 100% will answer those. Whether it's about being retired in Korea, overseas, you just want to say hi, or you got some tips or tricks or videos that you want to pass on from YouTube to, hey, you were talking about this guy does this. Do that as well. Appreciate that. People on the bottom have bought me coffee. There's a link for that, but at least just like and subscribe to the channel. That would be the best thing that you can do. So, and as we continue on, we'll document this cosplay stuff. And again, yeah, doing the Doom Eternal Slayer stuff. Just going to take a little while, but I think the journey is going to be worth it. So with that, we will see you all in the next video. All right? Take care. Peace. Peace, 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 pieces.